William Shakespeare's King Lear is not only a powerful tragedy of human suffering and redemption, but also a masterpiece of symbolic expression. Every storm, tear, and image in the play reflects deeper meanings about life, power, morality, and the human condition. Shakespeare did not merely tell a story of an aging king who loses his kingdom and sanity. He created a symbolic universe where nature mirrors emotion, blindness represents ignorance, and madness becomes wisdom. Symbolism in literature is the use of objects, actions, or events to represent abstract ideas. In King Lear, symbols serve as mirrors, reflecting the internal struggles of characters and the external chaos of a collapsing kingdom. Through these symbols, Shakespeare explores universal themes such as pride, justice, loyalty, and the fragile boundary between civilization and savagery. Perhaps the most powerful symbol in King Lear is the storm on the heath. On a literal level, it is a violent tempest that rages around Lear, but symbolically, it represents the turmoil within Lear's soul and the chaos that has engulfed the realm after he foolishly divides his kingdom. When Lear finds himself on the stormy heath, stripped of his crown and betrayed by his daughters, he cries out to the heavens,
"Blow winds and crack your cheeks. Rage, blow." Act 3, Scene 2.
This cry is more than a reaction to the weather. It is a desperate confrontation with his own guilt, anger, and loss of control. The storm becomes a projection of Lear's mental disintegration. Nature itself seems to rebel against human folly, reflecting the disorder that results when the natural and moral order is broken. Moreover, the storm serves as a purifying force. In the tempest, Lear begins to shed his pride and confront his own humanity. He recognizes the suffering of others and begins to feel compassion for poor, naked wretches. Thus, the storm symbolizes not only destruction, but also moral cleansing and spiritual rebirth. As critic A.C. Bradley observed, the storm scene is not merely a scene of physical exposure, but a representation of the tempest in the human soul. It is the moment when Lear's journey from blindness to understanding begins. One of the most recurring symbolic patterns in King Lear is that of sight and blindness, both literal and metaphorical. Shakespeare uses this motif to illustrate how true understanding often comes through suffering and loss. Lear, at the beginning of the play, is blind to truth. He cannot see through the flattery of Goneril and Regan, nor can he recognize the genuine love of Cordelia. When she refuses to flatter him, he disowns her, declaring, "Out of my sight." Act 1, Scene 1. Ironically, it is Lear who cannot see clearly. His moral blindness leads to catastrophe. Similarly, Gloucester's literal blindness later in the play parallels Lear's metaphorical one. After being deceived by Edmund, Gloucester's eyes are brutally gouged out. Yet paradoxically, it is only after losing his physical sight that he gains spiritual vision. He declares, "I stumbled when I saw." Act 4, Scene 1. Thus Shakespeare suggests that true vision lies not in the eyes, but in the heart and mind. Both Lear and Gloucester must endure pain to perceive the truth. Their parallel journeys highlight the symbolic theme that wisdom often comes through blindness and insight through suffering. Clothing and nakedness form another rich symbolic pattern in King Lear. The play constantly contrasts external appearance with inner reality. At the start, Lear is a king draped in royal garments, symbolizing authority and dignity. Yet those robes also conceal his arrogance and ignorance. When Lear is driven into the storm, he begins to shed his clothing, both literally and metaphorically. In Act 3, Scene 4, Lear exclaims, "Is man no more than this? Consider him well. Unaccommodated man is no more but such a poor, bare, forked animal as thou art." Here, unaccommodated man becomes a symbol of human vulnerability stripped of social status. Nakedness represents the truth of human existence, fragile, mortal, and equal before nature. The Fool and Edgar, disguised as poor Tom, embody this symbolism. Both are dressed in rags, yet they speak profound truths that the well-dressed nobles fail to understand. Their outward poverty hides inner wisdom, while Lear's royal robes conceal spiritual poverty. By the time Lear appears on stage with a crown of weeds, he has symbolically cast off the false trappings of kingship. Nakedness, in this sense, represents honesty, humility, and enlightenment, a stark contrast to the deceit and pretension of the court. Throughout King Lear, Shakespeare uses animal imagery to expose the savagery of human behavior. The unnatural cruelty of Goneril, Regan, and Edmund is frequently described through bestial metaphors. Lear curses Goneril as detested kite. Thou art a boil, a plague sore, an embossed carbuncle in my corrupted blood. Act 2, Scene 4. He calls his daughters pelican daughters, referencing the myth that pelicans feed on the blood of their parents, a symbol of unnatural ingratitude. Such animal comparisons reveal the dehumanization of characters who betray family and moral order. Edmund too mocks human laws and invokes nature as his goddess, but his version of nature is not benevolent, it is selfish, animalistic survivalism. His worldview represents the breakdown of civilization into bestial instinct. In contrast, Lear's journey leads him to recognize the beast in himself and others. By acknowledging this, he learns compassion and understanding. Thus, the animal imagery symbolizes the struggle between humanity and inhumanity that defines the play. Nature is one of the most complex and multifaceted symbols in King Lear. Every major character interprets nature differently, revealing their moral and philosophical beliefs. For Lear, nature initially represents the natural bond of family and loyalty. He expects his daughters to love him because he is their father. When they betray him, he feels that the natural order itself has been violated. For Edmund, however, nature symbolizes freedom from moral and social constraints. He rejects the idea of divine or familial duty, declaring, "Thou, nature, art my goddess. To thy law my services are bound." Act 1, Scene 2. This inversion of the natural order marks the beginning of chaos. When human beings defy moral and cosmic law, the entire universe seems to collapse. The storm, madness, and deaths that follow all symbolize this disruption of natural harmony. By the end of the play, the restoration of order through Edgar and Albany suggests a rebalancing of nature. Shakespeare thus uses nature as a symbol for moral order, justice, and divine will, reminding audiences that human arrogance against natural law leads to destruction. Madness in King Lear is both literal and symbolic. Lear's descent into madness is not merely psychological, It is a spiritual awakening. Through madness, he begins to see truths that sanity had blinded him to. As Lear loses his reason, he gains insight into human suffering and equality. In his madness, he becomes a philosopher, reflecting on poverty and justice. Take physic, Pomp. Expose thyself to feel what wretches feel. Act 3, Scene 4. The fool, on the other hand, symbolizes wise madness. He uses riddles and songs to reveal truths that no sane courtier dares to speak. His jests expose Lear's folly and society's hypocrisy. In a symbolic sense, the fool is Lear's conscience and alter ego, guiding him towards self-knowledge. Edgar's disguise as poor Tom also plays into this theme. By pretending to be mad, he mirrors Lear's own madness and becomes a symbol of the thin line between sanity and insanity. Through these figures, Shakespeare shows that madness, paradoxically, can be a path to wisdom. The crown in King Lear is a powerful symbol of authority, responsibility, and illusion. When Lear decides to divide his kingdom, he imagines he can keep the title of king without the burden of power. This false belief in the separation of title and duty symbolizes his detachment from reality. The division of the crown between his daughters leads to the disintegration of the kingdom, symbolizing the breakdown of unity and moral order. The crown, instead of representing stability, becomes a sign of human ambition and folly. Moreover, the family itself becomes a symbol of the kingdom. The betrayal within Lear's family mirrors the political corruption of the state. Cordelia's filial loyalty, in contrast, symbolizes the moral center of the play, the enduring values of love and truth. Through these symbols, Shakespeare suggests that political power and personal virtue are inseparable. The tragedy of King Lear arises when rulers forget that their crowns are not ornaments of pride but emblems of service. Light and darkness function symbolically throughout King Lear to reflect knowledge and ignorance, hope and despair. When Lear wanders in the storm, he is surrounded by darkness, both literal and mental. His gradual movement toward enlightenment is mirrored by moments of figurative illumination. Gloucester's line, "I have no way and therefore want no eyes," embodies this symbolism. The absence of light is not just blindness, but moral darkness. Conversely, when characters gain insight, Shakespeare often associates it with light, day, or vision. In the final act, as Lear reunites with Cordelia, there is a moment of spiritual illumination. Lear, though physically broken, perceives truth and love clearly for the first time. Darkness thus becomes a journey toward inner light, a symbol of redemption through suffering. Although King Lear is not overtly religious, it contains profound Christian symbolism. Lear's suffering parallels the Passion of Christ. He endures humiliation, loss, and pain, yet achieves spiritual purification. Cordelia's forgiveness of her father recalls the Christian ideal of grace. When Lear finally recognizes her love, it is too late, but the moment becomes symbolic of redemption. The imagery of sin, justice, and divine order pervades the play, suggesting that human cruelty is redeemed only through love and humility. The ending, though tragic, carries moral symbolism. Lear's death while holding Cordelia's body symbolizes the final union of love and truth, the two virtues that had been lost in the play's moral chaos. What makes the symbolism of King Lear extraordinary is its interconnectedness. The storm reflects blindness. Blindness leads to insight. Nakedness reveals truth. Madness leads to wisdom. Each symbol complements the others, forming a web of meaning that enriches every scene. For example, the storm, nature, connects to nakedness, human vulnerability, which in turn links to madness, spiritual revelation. Through this intricate network, Shakespeare expresses his deepest vision of humanity, that wisdom arises through suffering, and truth is revealed when illusion is stripped away. Symbolism in King Lear transforms a story of an aging king into a timeless exploration of human nature. The storm, blindness, madness, nature, and nakedness all serve as mirrors of the human soul, reflecting both its frailty and its capacity for redemption. Through these symbols, Shakespeare reveals that true vision lies not in sight, but in understanding, true power not in crowns, but in compassion, and true sanity not in reason alone, but in moral awareness. Ultimately, King Lear is a symbolic journey, from pride to humility, from blindness to insight, from chaos to a fragile glimpse of grace. Shakespeare's use of symbolism invites readers and viewers to look beyond the surface of the tragedy and see the deeper truths it embodies about life, morality, and the eternal struggle between illusion and reality.